The Anatomy of the Lesbian Shame Circle. Hey everybody, it's Prince of Queens, and during this Pride Month, this LGBTQIA++ Pride Month, this QTPOC, this Q-tip Pride Month, I'm largely going to be doing improv videos where I'm just kind of making fun of the LGBTQIA++ community. You know, because I can do that because I'm a gay guy. And I don't really have all that many super profound things to say always, because I've largely said them in my videos in the past, but I certainly can just kind of riff and talk about things that are kind of funny. So I want to talk about this thing called the Lesbian Shame Circle, which I did not coin the phrase. This is something that really does happen. And I know that I've brought this up in videos in the past. I have to have. If I didn't, that's strange. So, the Lesbian Shame Circle was coined as a phrase by a woman that, what was her name? Her name was Miss Behavior. And she was an author in the late 90s or so. She had a book called Do What I Say, Miss Behavior's Guide to Etiquette in the Lesbian and Gay Community. And she was a lesbian, but she was cool. Like, if you read this book, you'd really like her for the most part. She considered herself a lipstick lesbian, and she hated PC lesbians. She talked a bunch of trash about them in the book. Like, that was a major portion of the book, was her talking trash about the majority of, maybe not the majority, but the sizable population of PC feminist lesbian types, and how she doesn't fit in with them, and she wishes they would just disappear. Because she's a lipstick lesbian, she likes to largely date butch lesbians, and then those women get in the way of everything, and they mess everything up. And people should be aware of that. Like, I was talking about this in my video where I talked about how not all lesbians are feminists, and how feminists victimize lesbians probably even more with all of their, you know, psychological and emotional abuse and smear campaigns and weird crap like that. Like, if you actually spend the majority of your life hanging out with these people primarily because you actually are one of them, can you imagine all of the crap that goes on? Because the same crap happens. Like, lesbians do get in domestic violence relationships. They do put out restraining orders on each other. Half the time they're bogus. I've known lesbians who, at least they say, and I have a tendency to believe them, just the women that I know, they've had girlfriends that tried to freak out on them and hit them, and then when she broke up with her, then the other girl tries to say that it was her hitting her and tries to get a restraining order because they're just that crazy. That kind of thing definitely happens, and so, you know, people should remember that it's not just these horrible lesbians being mean to everybody else, blah, blah, blah. It's no, they're mean to each other too. And the lesbians that are cool, it's really a shame that they have to deal with that, you know. But hey, I'm not going to whine for them. I'm not going to white knight on their behalf too much. But one of the things that I want to remind people of is that there's reasons that the lesbian scene is the way that it is. It's rigidly enforced by the PC feminist lesbians. Like, they watch all of the reality that they are in. Like, they go around their little realm and police it very thoroughly. They make everything into a little safe space, you know? They do that. And, you know, if anybody problematic comes around, like if I come around, they can tell that I'm not exactly going to be conservative with my offensive or oppressive language. They know that I'm going to use words like stupid or something, and it makes them nervous. They know that they can't control me, and I can always tell. And one of the ways that they control people, and this is a really big one, and it's intense. It's really intense, but you'd have to actually spend time in circles that are majority lesbian to understand this, or circles where the lesbians feel like they have power over everybody else, because they don't start pulling crap like this unless they feel like they have power over the entire social setting, which in many places they do. There's many places that will kowtow and cater to the demands of the most easily offended lesbians in the room. There's lots of social realities that are like that if you hang out in far leftist urban meccas. But they don't really do this so much in most places. They only do this when they think that they can get away with it, because it's an authoritarian power move that is dependent upon the authorities being on their side. So it's the lesbian shame circle. And this is how it works. Somebody says something that is offensive, or they do something that bothers the lesbians. The example given in the book, and remember, this is from the late 90s, when politically correct culture was fairly different. In the late 90s, a massive amount of what politically correct culture was had to do with environmentalism, more so than it does today by a long shot. I mean, it's not like the SJWs aren't environmentalists, because they are, but back in the 1990s, I think because Al Gore was supposed to be the next president after Bill Clinton, and his big platform was global warming, I think that they were trying to set a stage that environmentalism was the biggest issue. That being said, the example given in the book was something about how if somebody was wearing sandals that were made by a company that didn't use biodegradable rubber, or I don't know if there is biodegradable rubber, but something like that, then the lesbians will do the lesbian shame circle on the person wearing the problematic sandals. And basically they corner you, and they get as many of them as possible to sort of blankly stare at you and express their deep, deep disapproval of your actions. And as the author said, and I majorly cannot emphasize how much I agree with her, it is a lot worse than it sounds. It is mortifying when they do this, because when they feed off of each other's energy. Like, the humorless lesbian energy is a strange energy that can multiply. Like, I don't know, like you're playing some sort of team role-playing game, you know, some sort of World of Warcraft or something, and you do a team spell or some crap like that. Man, they all start doing the humorless stare, like, I can't believe you did this. I can't. Oh my God. And it makes you feel really, really, really bad about whatever they're trying to make you feel bad about. Now, when I read that book, I was about probably 19 years old. And it's funny because I hadn't experienced the lesbian shame circle personally, at least not that I really remembered. But what I really did remember is that they did it to my mother successfully. These two lesbians did it to my mother. So my mother lives in this sort of neighborhood where they are friends with lots and lots of the people that are in the neighborhood, and they hang out with each other a lot. And there was these two lesbians that hung out there, and it's a very, very PC neighborhood. So I was with my mother at some sort of potluck thing that they had. Surprise, surprise. And my mother was one of the organizers for some reason. I don't remember what this was. This was in the 90s. And my mother had, because it was some sort of, it wasn't a potluck, because my mother had ordered pizza. And my mother ordered Domino's pizza, because why not, right? Well, turns out that Domino's has supported some anti-gay bills in the past or something. And, you know, my mother, as much as I'm being her kid, she's can be kind of weird to her kids and maybe kind of weird to her husband or something, but like overall, my mother is like the sweetest woman. Like, she's so incredibly nice to people, and almost everybody that ever meets her really likes her a lot, and she tries so hard to be a good person and not offend anybody. And you know, she's so susceptible to shaming. And so I was sitting there and, like eating pizza or something. And I look over and I see these two lesbians giving my mother a talking to. And my mother looks like she wants to cry. I'm serious. And I was like, what is going on? And so as soon as they left my mom alone, I was like, what happened, Mom? And she was like, oh, well, I guess the pizza has supported some anti-gay bills. And so, they said it's fine, but I'm not supposed to order from Domino's again. And, but she's all like shaken up by this. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to say that shopping with your dollars is a bad strategy to combat anti-gay businesses, because you should do that if that's proven to be true. If this is a legit thing that Domino's is actually anti-gay, sure, I support boycotting them. But did you need to pull her aside and have two people like try to make her feel really guilty? Like, can't you just sort of casually say, oh, hey, by the way, Domino's has supported some kind of anti-gay bills, just so you know, I don't order from them. Like, my mother would agree with you and she would choose not to in the future. You don't have to like humiliate her. And the only purpose that really serves to me is kind of like making somebody bend the knee. Like, if you submit to the lesbian shame circle, if you are scared of it, then they think that they're in charge of you, and then they can pull more crap like that on you. I don't think that those women necessarily did that to my mother in the future. For all I know, that they were perfectly nice aside from that. But it was weird. It was weird. So the next time I encountered the lesbian shame circle, it was myself personally. They attempted it on me. They tried to pull the lesbian shame circle on me. I was in New York City when I was in college, and it was actually a really funny situation. I was with a friend of mine who's Black. His parents are both African immigrants, and he's a very, very smart guy and very cool. And he is gay. He's homosexual. Some lesbians tried to set him up on a date with this guy who he had never met, who was trans. And he had seen social media pictures of the guy, and he was like, I think that guy's trans, but if he's not trans, he's pretty cute. So he wanted to go on the date, but he wanted me to go with as his buddy. And so then the lesbians made it into some group thing, and there was like 5 or 6 of us, or 7 maybe even. And it got to this point where we started sharing little jokes that we had all made up. Everybody got to share the joke that they made up. And the lesbians were not funny, of course. They're humorless lesbians. So they literally all had puns. Like, I'm not joking. They all had little puns that they made up, which were just, it was like they read them off of a popsicle stick or something. They're obscenely unfunny. So I told the joke that I made up. And I swear to God, I did make this up. Independent. It might have spread, or maybe other people came up with this. But I'm in middle school. I came up with a Yo Mama joke. And it's, Yo Mama had so many kids, she gave them all the same name. Welfare. And my friend, who is Black, like very, very Black, he started laughing a bunch. But one of the lesbians was offended and tried to call me out, kind of. But then the trans guy intervened and said that he kind of mediated and basically said that he thought it was a reasonably funny joke, even though he hadn't laughed at it. So then they had to leave me alone because the progressive stack of the table, the Black gay guy and the trans guy sided with me. So they had to abort mission, like it wasn't a safe space for safe pizza at that dinner. But, and then the final time that they did the lesbian shame circle, I was in San Francisco and I was dating this guy. I've talked about, I know I've talked about this. I was dating this guy who is friends with a bunch of feminists. I think he must be a feminist, honestly. He's not really that cool. He's a weirdo. He brought me over to these girls' house, and there was like 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5. And I was the only person drinking, which was really, really a dumb idea. And I used the word retarded as a negative, and they tried to do the lesbian shame circle on me, but I was prepared. I had been in these situations before. I had even read the book about the lesbian shame circle, and I just instinctually knew that I could not submit. And so I sat there arguing with them for like 30 minutes. Because I'm Prince of Queens.